All right, guys. August 6th, we're getting a new balance adjustment for Epic 7, and we've got a lot of interesting characters to be looking at. Like, just off the top of this list, Specimen Says hasn't really been played that much. Sage Baal, I don't think I've seen him for a while, and it's going to be really interesting. Conquer Lilius, a former meta unit that's kind of fallen out of favor, but hope to see her back. We have Lionheart Sermia, who's kind of hard to play overall, and I'm hoping to see if she's going to have the stuff inside her kit to work finally. Commander Pavel, who I think is Commander Pavel can work if you're really fast and have just insane gear, but for like the average player, he's not really that good. Twisted Kairon kind of had a resurgence when Tori came into the game, but's kind of fallen off ever since Fallen Cecilia really like entered the fray. And in round mode, he kind of had like some situations he could be picked up, but overall like he needed a much needed buff. Top model Lilica, I'm not much of a cleaver, so I don't know how much her buffs will affect it, but she was a solid opener overall for cleavers if they want to have a DPS, but she was really gear intensive. Festive Ida, she had kind of her stay inside the meta, but overall, I don't think she had that much going for her to really stay inside of it. Flan, arena unit, don't think this will affect RTA that much. Summer Break Charlotte, uh, they can do a lot of things for her, but overall, like she definitely needs a buff in a way that makes her more useful on her dual attack in my opinion, because her dual attack feels really lackluster compared to units like A-Flan, you know. So we'll see what they do. Mew, don't know much about her kit, so we'll see when we look at her. Lilibet was one of my favorite characters, and she was okay in Guild War from her last buff, but she's not really the best option. So it will be interesting to see. SHARUN, she's kind of weak when I last used her, but I think she was like kind of a pocket pick type character rather than like a really good character. With Mediator falling out of the meta, she kind of lost her good counter pick, but she was playable in the past couple months, but not to much extent. Challenger Dominion, I don't know what they can really do to her outside of reworking her kit to make her more useful. They could make her more consistent for contents like PvE, but like that's not gonna do much. And Infernal Quazu, this character I have a vendetta against because I've almost lost every single game I tried to play him. He's really bad in my opinion, so I hope they do a good buff to make him like actually viable into characters he should be. And jumping straight into it, we have Specimen Says effectiveness increase on S1, always going to be nice. So you need 150 effectiveness or effect resist to resist his stun 100%. So he's going to be really nice into people who like 100, 120 ER on their units, and he's going to be able to actually land his debuff overall. And it will make it less RNG into people who have less than 100. Uh, 80% stun instead of 60%. That's going to be pretty nice. You're going to probably land four-man stuns against like teams when you use this. So if you have no counters towards stuns like Emil Sharoon or a cleanser that's above 150 ER, like he's going to go really crazy. And now attack buffs, so you don't have to run Moonlight Dreamblade if you're going like the evasion build, and like you keep the CR push. So he's going to have a good time getting those turn before their stun wears off. And then S3 healing damage dealt. I think this is really good because it lets you not go lifesteal, and maybe you can go a more faster speed build, or you can go a slower distro build. And it like really opens up options for him to kind of have that 1v4 carry, because he now has sustain, like better stuns with the effectiveness, higher rate of stun, and he gets his own attack buff to increase the damage he deals by 50% to let you use artifacts like the Crescent or Shepherds, or even just like Wind Rider if you want to go for the faster route. Okay, Sage Ball, this was one I'm looking forward to. Dispels two buffs instead of one buff. Really nice. Really good into buff stackers, really good into characters or cleavers who like apply a buff to their team. Like Prot set immunity is going to be really nice against that. Soulburn grants an extra turn. Okay, so he doesn't decrease his S3 cooldown here. Uh, Attacks the enemy with an evil spirit when the enemy is defeated. Extends debuff durations of all remaining enemies by 1 turn. Okay, so if he kills an enemy, they get a 2 turn sleep, and now it just penetrates defense but cannot trigger a critical hit and damage dealt proportional to max health. So he's kind of like a one, like he goes for the S2 Soulburn and the one-shot Soulburn with S3 to guarantee kill against cleavers most of the time. It seems like trying to make him more aggressive because before he needed to get hit, so after his S2 he would struggle to like keep up the tempo that he wanted to apply. I mean, this just seems pretty good. Makes him way more deadly into cleave. I mean, overall, I think he's going to see much more play because he's less passive, more active, and to debuff the spell is going to let him break through a lot more like buffs that the enemy applies to let him land his sleep. I think that's pretty good. Conquer Lilius, defense decrease instead of decreased combat readiness. I think that's a big buff because the decreased combat readiness, I think it's good in maybe like long games, but then also defense decrease is also good because it lets you get a kill and you can extend the buff to 2 turns. So you can definitely just like deal massive damage with her. And now she gets CR push on S3. I mean, CR push. We've seen characters like Piera. We've seen characters like Firelitica with what is it? Oh, Will of Renewal. Getting the CR push. It's very strong, and especially it lets you cut units like a KD's trying to cut. Lets you kind of get all your units to take a turn. We've seen DJB push up the team and just let them all like aggro onto someone. Like this is gonna be good, and especially with the new Hua, she's going to get the vigor. Your whole team gets pushed up. She goes S3 push up your backline unit, and then like there's almost no way your backline unit will get cut with all the CR push that they're getting. Plus damage increase to everyone. It's pretty nice overall. I think this will definitely make her see a lot more play in terms of like outside of like cleave players, more aggro players or standard, where they're trying to take turn one and get their turns to kind of start their like buff cycling maybe or debuff cycling, or even take your turns and try to get a pick. So you're playing a 4v3 rather than a 4v4. Lionheart Cermia, Constellation Change. I don't know the difference between Ares and Pisces, but let's see. Grants increased defense and immunity to the caster for 3 turns. So after she does her S3, S1, she's going to still have her immunity and defense, which is going to increase her survivability by a lot. So you can't kill her after her first like proc, and she's going to be more consistent, where it's going to be a lot of work to try to kill her. And then increases combat readiness by 50% instead of 20%. So she's going to be able to cut Green Celine on it. Like honestly, like Conquer Lilius plus Lionheart Cermia will cut Green Celine. Um, Anyone that CR push, like even if you want to use Aram and like use her S2, it gets procced. Lionheart Cermia will cut. So she has a lot of options to be used, especially when people like playing Green Celine into DJB, Aram, and Conquer Lilius is going to be a very strong pick. And you can't really get Abyssal Crown from like Politis afterwards, which is really nice. So she's not going to have like any fear of getting debuffed most of the time, unless it's like an actual strip, which is really good. I think this will make her really, really strong as a counter to a lot of those extra attacks. Okay, Commander Pavel. Let's see. Combat readiness from 50% to 100%. Kind of puts him in line with Requiem Rowana and Successor Teu. Damage dealt increased. He's going to be way better at taking out units then. Like squishy units will probably die to his S2 really easily, making him not have to like take additional turns after his S2 S3 to like kill off units. and then S3 damage dealt increased, and soul burn damage dealt increased. So I feel like the S3 damage dealt increased with the soul burn doesn't really matter that much outside of maybe killing a Runka, which now if you don't want to ban a Runka and you're playing Cleave, Commander Pavel Soulburn will probably kill a Runka majority of the time. So you can play this character reliably as a way to deal with like high defense units, specifically Arunka, but we'll have to see how much the damage dealt increased to see if it's consistent enough, especially against players with really good Arunka builds with a lot of defense, a lot of HP. Not much really changed about it, the way you play him, so it will just be about a numbers game to see if he's more consistent. Twisted Eidolon Keiran, injury now on S1 makes it so I think injury on S1 is actually an insanely good buff because now we have 10% injury. If they don't have barriers, you're basically permanently decreasing their health. So characters that heal, like Soul Weavers with healing, lifesteal, any of that sort, reviving when they come back after killing them, they'll come back with less HP. So HP scalers will deal less damage to him, so he's able to cycle maybe more counters on enemy from getting hit and not even like die because they're dealing so little damage that your barrier holds up. And now your S3 will have an easier chance of killing lifesteal units because even if they're full HP, you're injuring them down slowly with every counter. Your S2 dispels all debuffs from the caster. I think that's really good because sometimes you'd get stunned or you get provoked and you will not get your S3 off the CR push. Then your base speed, so you're struggling to take that next turn after that control turn. So he's going to have a lot of reliability now where he's always going to have a chance to S3. And now, regardless of whether the attack hits, so this means he's going to kill Fireflan 100%. He's going to kill Aiden. He's going to kill Rylet. He's going to kill anyone that dodges off of Piera's buff, 20% evasion. He's always going to kill um, Holiday Euphine, which is like not that often you pick into it, but overall, like any evasion units instantly like are going to struggle against him because he's dealing up to 15k damage with his S3, which is really strong. And then now his damage reduction isn't from suffering a crit, it's overall. So now Dark Corvus, Blue Corral, Laya, um, overall, like those units that just don't crit on their attacks, they're going to get that 30% damage reduction. So now, like, you're surviving those hits more. And especially, like, let's say, like, you're getting hit by FCC and she doesn't crit, like, that's going to lower the damage a little bit. So FCC can't even try to break the barrier if it's, like, uh, low, like, late in the game where your barriers get decreased based off of Battle Frenzy. So his usability looks very strong, and I'm interested to see like how he'll be used. I think he keeps his ability to fight cleave, and also he gains the ability to fight evasion units, and he now has an ability to fight HP scalers. But I wouldn't say that you pick him specifically into HP scalers, but he's better overall. Like he's just more of like an actual DPS now that's reliable. So I'm looking forward to seeing this character. I think it'll be really hard to play him still. Like FCC will still cut his damage by so much that it's really hard to kill without like having actual like crit damage on him to hit like to break the barriers or break the HP of like Tories and stuff. But you could maybe pick him into FCC because if he injures enough to where Tori drops below like 7.5k and then you destroy the barrier with the S3, you're killing even through FCC. Okay, top model Lulika. 40% chance to gain an extra attack with the same skill. So they're just making it so it's not on the caster's turn, so she's better with dual attacks. You could build her counterattack, but I don't see the reason. And yeah, you definitely won't build her counterattack because when the caster's speed is at least twice of the target, penetrates defense by 50%. Um, I mean, I feel like this This was added as a counter to Arunka, and right? They added this to be a counter to Arunka because I think the damage Tamara Lulika deals will be enough to at least like deal a heavy damage to Arunka, where the follow up after her S3 will kill Arunka, maybe? Because 50% pen's a lot of damage, especially when she's hitting really hard. You could also kill, like, who can you kill? Like, anyone under 150 speed? There's not that many units, so I feel like she's not going to be that much useful compared to how she was before. She's just a little more consistent and maybe a little more like niche towards like slow players. But I mean, yeah. Festive Edda, 75% chance to decrease hit chance to 40% chance to stun, increased by 25% still there, so it's 65%, 100%. So 65% chance to stun, really high. They removed the soul burn though, so I mean I didn't really like her soul burn. I don't think it was the most consistent thing, but 65% chance to stun, always going to be nice, especially when there's no cleansers. Removing like a turn off of a unit, always strong. Um, so looks like they changed just the effects after her expected outcome goes. So now instead of dispelling two buffs and decreasing combat readiness with a defense break, they decrease combat readiness, no dispel two buffs, remove that, and deals damage proportional to the caster's health. So you lose a lot of control on her S2, but her S2's now a damage ability. So I'm guessing they added the dispel two buffs to her S3. So I think that's a really good change. Makes her like kind of function a little better. Because before you weren't landing the unbuffable in silence, and then you strip afterwards. Doesn't make sense. So now you strip and land defense break instead of unbuffable. Really good. Because now if you get the CR pushback, your defense break, CR pushback deal damage, and then you have your team go. And then you also get the silence, which is going to be really good. And now you have ignore ER. So if she takes a turn and she S3s with ignore ER, like no cleanser can deal with her defense breaks. You have to pick like a Dilibet, or you have to pick like someone who cleanses on uh off their turn, like Elena. So she can be really like detrimental as a debuffer. They made her debuffs like overall just harder to deal with this ignore ER. Having a stun lets her be way more useful on her off turns, and then she deals a little more damage because her S2 has additional damage proc. Like this looks like she's actually like a really strong debuffer, but is she on the levels of other debuffers in the game? I'm not sure because the problem with it is her CR pushback is tied to losing stealth. So you're not going to get the CR pushback and the damage dealt consistently, but the ignore ER silence and its two-turn defense break, you can still build her as kind of an opener and get defense break, silence, and you can just they have no way to cleanse without Dilibet. They take their turn, silence, and your team can be a little slower than theirs, and it will still be fine because they'll still have the defense break. I mean, it looks really good. I think we'll have to see how she plays out, how people use her, and she might actually end up being like a really strong like pseudo opener against slower players, not like an aggressive because I think her base speed is not the best. I'll have to see, but like a 270, 280 speed one will cause havoc to players that aren't really playing for that turn one value. Flan, um, 75% chance to decrease defense. Don't think that matters because you're not playing her for that. They don't change the Force of the Awakening. Inflicting unbuffable, removed, increases skill cooldown of all enemies by one. Um, I mean, if you have a setup for her, like if you have a setup for her, increasing skill cooldown is always going to be nice, and then cooldown is decreased by one turn. She's way more useful when you play her in Arena and probably Guild War, but in RTA, I feel like getting that perfect setup is kind of hard. So I don't think her usability in RTA is going to change much. But I mean, it's a good buff anyways. Um, does this do anything? Increase the defense break by like 85%. It doesn't matter. Summer break Charlotte. Okay, this one's interesting. 75% chance to decrease defense. That's really insane. So you're basically getting 4 man, like consistently getting a 3 to 4 man defense break on her dual attack, and she increases combat readiness of all allies by 20%. I mean, Zio is just better now. Like you play her with Zio, she's kind of just fills in the slot of A Flan a little differently because A Flan pushes herself up, but then pushes her entire team up. Defense breaks one person, but she's has the potential to defense break everyone. But you can get counterplayed by anti AoE units like Elena still. But the CR push seems really broken overall. Damage dealt increased on her S3. I mean, her S3 really hit hard. So, yeah, I mean, this looks really good. I feel like she's just going to be another character that's added into the Zeo Cleave. And Zeo Cleave is honestly very disgusting. It's really like hard to survive Successor Teu. Now you have Summer Break Charlotte, you have Aflan, you have Blitica, you have Rowana. You have so many options that it's going to be really hard to like counter them all, and they can like get the upper hand on players that aren't ready for maybe a Summer Break Charlotte pick in the stead of Aflan, and that team-wide defense break can be like taken advantage of and killed with an AoE damager off the 20% CR push. So I think she's going to be really good. Lilibet, remove the unbuffable. Now it just increases combat readiness. I mean, damage dealt increased. Way more consistent in standard drafts. But I don't think you really pick her in standard, but it's okay. Buff. Okay, attacks the enemy. 100% chance to dispel all buffs. So she doesn't get the CR push anymore. Damage dealt decreased, but Soulburn 10, ignore ER. So she gets a guaranteed basically dispel debuffs. Critical hit will grant an extra turn, so she loses her CR push for an extra turn. I think that's fine. Still gets ignore ER. So I mean, you dispel the prot set, the immunity. That's okay. Attacks the enemy, granting skill nullifier when the enemy is defeated. Inflicts extinction. Fully penetrates that target's defense. Fully penetrates the target's defense. Damage shall decreased. Okay, so I mean, if you remove their prot set with the S2, you kind of like reduce a lot. Like you don't have to break through that big barrier, and then you penetrate the defense. This could be really good. Let me see. I mean, if the S3 just kills straight up with penetrates defense, she's just going to be a really strong Guild War unit. I feel like she has the like really strong damage. Like she beats like the increased hit chance is kind of good into Piera. You got penetrates defense, so she's just killing things, guaranteed. You don't have to remember like you don't have to care about their defense and stuff. You always know the exact amount. Dispel the debuffs. I don't really understand her S2 that much. Like the dispel debuffs doesn't really do anything when she doesn't really debuff, but you can use it for someone who follow up, I guess. You lose a lot of the damage. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how she plans out, but she could potentially be a good Guild War unit to kill. She kills Arunka maybe. If she has enough damage, she kills Arunka turn one. Then you use her S2 for like the extra turn afterwards to get like more damage off on someone. I'm not really sure. This just seems really weird. Like, why would they decrease the damage dealt on the S2? But you're not building crit, are you? Wait. Oh no, you're still building crit because it does. You can still crit. Actually, never mind. Disregard that. You still build crit. So, I mean, penetrates deep. I mean, it's still good. This seems really good. But I just don't see her actually being usable outside of Guild War. Cause like her S2 and her S1 seems really bad. Her S3 gets one pick, but then like, what do you do after you kill one unit? I feel like you kill one unit, and like if they have any way to fight you 3v4, if they have any revives, Actually, she has extinction, so even if revivers, like, she doesn't have enough damage to be useful after the first kill. So if your team can't hold their own 4v3, you can still just die. So I don't think she's good in RTA still, but we'll see. I think it's just a weird change in my opinion. Mui, so your target is just increased by 25% here. Damage dealt increased, doesn't matter because you're not building her for damage, right? She's a bleed unit. The increased combat readiness of the caster by 30% per hit. Um, I mean, 120% CR push. You counter like anyone who pushes themselves up by 20% who's not at 80%. So you have a good time, like you have a good chance of just always taking the turn, even off of people who try to cut you. So it's impossible for Mui to get cut most of the time. Um, yeah, that's about it. She's just more consistent. I don't see how this changes how she's played, so um, I don't see how this does anything really. Doesn't change anything. SHARUN, 100% chance to inflict venom for one turn, really good. Ignores ER, really really good. Uh, if you need to get that reset off, you will always get the reset. I mean, yeah, this looks really strong. Basically, we'll always get the reset if you want the soul burn. Really good into units whose abilities are really impactful. Okay, S2, combat readiness increased 25%, pretty decent. She doesn't grant a random buff anymore. Don't think the random buff was really strong, but it was too targeted towards attack scaling DPSs. So she wasn't really versatile with her buff outside of maybe I think she gave continuous healing, but I'm not 100% sure. I know it was attack buff, crit damage buff, and maybe immunity actually. So I think removing that is a fine change if they add more. And it looks like it increases combat readiness of the highest attack ally by 25% after her turn. So not only does she cycle faster, but she cycles your highest attack ally every turn she takes. So like if she takes 4 turns, you get an extra turn on your ally. Not to mention you can be cutting enemies that are the same speed as their highest attack ally to get turns over them and kill them. So that I think this is already really strong. S3 applies 2 venoms for 2 turns. Oh, that's disgusting. Okay, so you going to like if you play her with DDR, you're going to have 6 venoms, like potentially 6 venoms. So you're dealing 60% max health damage potentially all for S3 after DDR's turn. Actually, 70% because I forgot to count in the pestilence. So 70% max health detonation damage seems really disgusting, and not to mention she increases her own combat readiness by 50%. And she increases her highest attack ally off her turn by 25%. So you can have like an AoE DPS take a turn right after her. She deals her 70% max health damage off her S3 potentially, and then you just clean up, deal her 30% with just the AoE. I think this is actually like going to be a really really strong character. Like she has cycling for her highest attack ally, barrier, so she's going to be really good with the DPS. Her venoms let her be really good against HP scalers and what is it, buff stackers and like immunity providers. She's removing it, and then like you're just dealing like she deals insane amount of damage by herself now. Like one venom was okay, decreased speed is okay. Like you're losing that, but like she trades off this kind of like debuffer style for a lot of damage, for more consistency on her off turns with an ignore soul burn to land venom to deal damage, plus also to reset cooldowns. I feel like she could be just a monster against HP heavy teams, as well as like imagine you play her with New Kid Aiden. Like you're giving a barrier plus combat readiness to New Kid Aiden, so New Kid Aiden cycles really hard, 45% if it has vigor. You can't really die with the barriers, and then you have the venom to add more injury onto the team. So your S1s on Aiden will just detonate really hard. I'm actually going to try her out when she gets buffed. She's probably going to be the first unit I try out because I think this buff is really interesting. Okay, Challenger Dominio. Increases combat readiness by 25%. Increases the tank of all allies when using supercharge. Okay, the tank of all allies is really interesting, but I don't think the way she plays out really matters. I mean, she's kind of better in PvE when you're playing like the what is it? Free Spirit Terraria plus Challenger Dominion. You'll always have her take the turn because sometimes if you're too fast on the unit, some stages where it gives speed buff, it kind of like takes turn over her, but like it doesn't really matter. Infernal Kawazu inflicts burn for 1 turn. Okay, 100% chance from the caster. More consistent, I guess. When she doesn't have vigor, ignores ER when he does. That's pretty good. I like that. Kind of just made it added this effect in by base and just makes it ignore ER. Doesn't really change how he plays out. Removes the silence. No one used silence most of the time. Everyone used the immunity. Inflicts 1 additional burn for 2 turns. Um, actually, isn't this okay? Now with the change to his EE, you can trade off immunity. Like if you don't want to run immunity on him on his EE when he S2s, which I think is good. It adds consistency to always take a turn if there's a debuffer after the AoE. But if you run this EE that inflicts an additional burn for 2 turns, and you run Benny's Tachi, you kill everything in the game, no matter what, as long as FCC is not picked. So you unironically, with this extra burn for 2 turns and a Benny Tachi, you will always kill a Runka. So this could be a really good Guild War tech when you run him with Conquer Lilius. With the newly buffed Conquer Lilius, you can run him with Aram maybe. Overall, this buff on Infernal Kawazu makes him maybe like a Guild War powerhouse. Because you kind of know if they're going to debuff you or not in Guild War. So you don't have to run the immunity EE. And in RTA, if you are able to run this arty and get away with not running the immunity EE, you're one-shotting definitely with the 50% burn buff in the Battle Frenzy. So I think this Infernal Kawazu buff is really nice. It makes him so much stronger. But is it enough to make him actually consistent? Because he will one-shot most likely always on his S3 with this EE. But his S1 will burn no matter what. You don't need effectiveness. But it's the same kind of thing. Who was it? As Lilibet, where can you win the 4v3 in RTA with him on your team? Like sometimes you just die. Like it's just it's not strong enough, and we have no artifacts being changed. Oh, I thought there was artifacts. Okay, so I think this is one of the best bounce patches we've had in a long, long time. No artifacts, but I think that's fine. I'd prefer more heroes. But there's not really anything like controversial. I feel like I think everything was a really nice change. It's kind of what the characters needed to get pushed into the game, and I feel like it's gonna create a lot more variety with how you play your styles, and it doesn't really like remove characters from the style. Like you're still, if you're playing Summer Break Charlotte, it's not overpowering. Afternoon Soak Flan, it's kind of, you can interchange them, and they're both really strong. So I'm pretty happy overall. I would say that the most excited I am is definitely Kayron, Lionheart Sermia, Siege Ball, Specimen Says, and probably SHARUN. And Summer Break Charlotte is like kind of interesting, but I don't really play Zio that often. So outside of Zio, I don't see me using her, but we'll see. But yeah, I think that's about it. There's not much else to cover, so I'll see you guys later.